How do I gain muscle as a skinny guy or a hard gainer? This is a question that I asked myself multiple times. When I graduated high school, I was 6'3" and only 138 pounds. At least by the end of my freshman year of college, I was 145 pounds. But through my personal fitness journey, I have gotten my weight up to 175 pounds and aiming to continue climbing. So in today's video, I'm going to be giving you some of my personal tips and what I did in order to gain 30 pounds of muscle. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. My name is Tyler Warlow and I go by The Mengineer. I make videos on how to improve your life through your confidence, capabilities, and overall happiness. If you're a skinny guy who has been trying to work out for years and has been failing to put on muscle, you most likely fall into the body type of what's known as an ectomorph. This is someone who has a pretty high metabolism and as a result has a hard time putting on fat, but as a consequence of this, also has a pretty hard time gaining muscle. There's a lot of guys that have fallen into this body type category, so this is nothing new. But today, I'm gonna be talking about what I personally did in order to gain 30 pounds, as well as what I plan to do in order to continue gaining weight. Before we continue, I wanna stress that I am not a professional. I'm just some guy on YouTube that's gonna be talking about what personally worked for him. So before you enact any of these tips, be sure to do your own research and any decisions that you make are your own. Now that we've got that covered, let's jump into the video. The first thing that I'm going to talk about for anyone that's been struggling to put on muscle is you first have to get your mindset right. The number one thing that has worked for me over the past couple years in order to put on muscle is consistency. You have to be willing to stick it through even if you're not seeing results at first or the results are coming slowly. In today's age of social media, we're used to seeing all these extreme results like I put on 50 pounds of muscle in 1 year. But what we fail to take into account is that a lot of these photos and stories are doctored in order to make the person look more impressive and very rarely tell the full truth. There's a huge amount of fake natties out there nowadays, even though I will say there has been a good increase in people admitting to their steroid use. But you shouldn't be comparing your own personal physique to these massive people that you see online because it's not entirely realistic. Just because you don't see results within the first few weeks doesn't mean that they won't come. You have to be willing to maintain that consistency even when the motivation and that initial excitement has dropped down. So you have to keep telling yourself that you need to keep showing up day after day, even if you don't want to. Even if it's been a long day at work, go to the gym. By making sure you have your mindset right and that you're going to consistently be showing up to do this, you're going to ensure that over the long term, you will see those results. You don't go to the gym for years and not see some sort of physical difference. The next tip I'm going to give is make sure that you determine what your priorities are. What I mean by this is if you're someone that enjoys going on a lot of runs or you enjoy doing sports that have high calorie burning activity in them, then you might want to reevaluate your priorities. If you're someone who struggles to put on muscle, it's likely because you don't have enough calories and protein intake in order to sustain muscle growth. And this could be in part due to the other activities that you do. When I was in high school, I used to love going and playing basketball with my friends, and I would go at least 2 times a week and play for probably about an hour and a half. And running back and forth on a court for an hour and a half is bound to burn a decent amount of calories. So it didn't really matter that I was eating a decent amount because I was burning a good amount off too. Now at the time, I wasn't really aiming to build muscle, so this wasn't my priority. But if I had decided to keep doing this when I first started trying to put on muscle, it would have made it a little bit harder. That's not to say that it's not possible, especially with newbie gains, but it would definitely slow down that initial rate of muscle growth. This is not to say that you should give up cardio entirely, as we need to also ensure that we have a healthy heart, but maybe do less intense exercises like going on a walk or a jog for 30 minutes rather than playing an intense game or sport for an hour and a half. Redetermine your priorities. If your priorities are for muscle growth, cut back on some of that high calorie burning activity. If your priorities are to go and play sports and just have fun with your friends, then do that, but recognize that you're gonna have a harder time building muscle. For instance, I lost a bet to a friend last year and I ended up having to train for a half marathon. And I did this over 3 months. So even though I continued to eat how I had been eating, which was about 3,200 calories a day to bulk, I actually ended up losing weight because the amount of running that I ended up doing in order to complete the training for that half marathon burned more than what I was consuming. So I actually lost some of that strength and that muscle. And that was just an example of how the activities that you are doing can impact the amount of muscle that you're putting on. But let's go ahead and move on to the next tip. All right, but now that we've got mindset covered, if you're feeling excited and motivated to continue learning more, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It will help you stay up to date and continue to follow along with the channel and the self-improvement journey that we're all going on. Thank you in advance, and now let's continue on. The next tip that I'm gonna have for some of y'all out there is drink your calories. There's a few different ways that you can achieve this. The main way that I personally recommend is by making some nutritional shakes, whether those are shakes to help you get your calories in or shakes to help you meet your nutrition needs. In terms of nutrition needs, I love to make fruit smoothies, and that always helps to get a couple extra 100 calories in. But when I was first starting on my weightlifting journey, I actually had a mass gainer shake that I would personally make. And I'm about to give you the recipe right now. Each of the ingredients I'm about to list were all done with 1 serving, and the shake was made with peanut butter, oats, whole milk, and a scoop of protein powder. All in all, this would come to about 610 calories. And if I was really short on my calorie goals for the day, I would just double the ingredients and have a larger shake. It was really not that voluminous, as it would just be a little bit more than the amount of liquid that I would put in the shake. So it was fairly easy to consume, and it tasted really good. Now, the other tip that I'm gonna give y'all in terms of drinking your calories is just stop worrying so much about diet products. Those diet products won't give you any extra calories, versus if you consume just a regular can of soda, that's an easy about 100 calories, give or take, especially if you end up getting a cup of soda from some fast food restaurant or even going out to eat. Those calories can easily stack. Now, personally, this is not my favorite way to do it, as this can easily add up into a lot of extra sugar intake, which is also not super great for your body. That's why I prefer the shake method, as it can be a little bit more nutritional as a whole, but it is an option for those of you who are struggling a bit. Those extra 100 calories can easily stack up over time, helping you to meet your caloric intake goals. And the next tip that I'm gonna have for y'all is also related to how to get your extra calories in. I know that I personally struggled a lot with having the appetite in order to eat the amount of calories that I needed to gain weight. I never had that large of an appetite, which made it really hard to just consume large meals. And that's where my next tip comes in. Rather than trying to get all of your calories in just 3 large meals, try breaking it up a little bit. Some people tend to do 4 or 5 smaller meals, but I personally find that that takes a lot of extra time. So what I like to do is to have snacks throughout the day. You can do this with all sorts of snacks, such as buying extra protein bars, putting together some sort of yogurt parfait, or sneaking in extra servings of fruits and vegetables. For instance, you can get an Oikos 000 yogurt that is about 90 calories, or you can have a banana, which is about 100 calories. Nature Valley also has peanut bars that come in at about 160 calories. And you can see if you have 1 or 2 snacks in between each of your meals, this can quickly add up to an extra few hundred calories that can help contribute towards your caloric goal. And it's nice because you won't be feeling nearly as bloated or as full as you had been if you had just been trying to do this with 3 square meals. And finally, coming in at number 1 is make sure that you are meeting your protein goals. Protein tends to be one of the most consistently underestimated macros out of the 3, that is protein, carbs, and fats. A lot of people tend to think that they are hitting their protein goals when they're actually undershooting them, because they don't have a really good understanding of how much protein is actually in their meals. So how much protein do you actually need in order to build muscle? Well, there tends to be a range. In order to maximize your muscle growth, you should be having about 1.6 to 2.4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. One thing to keep in mind here is that the law of diminishing returns tends to take effect. So as you add more and more protein and you get up onto that upper end of the scale, you're getting less and less overall benefit, but that's not to say that it won't work. So just to go through a quick example, let me go through my own personal body weight and what my personal needs would be for protein. I am 175 pounds, and if you quickly look up on Google a quick conversion, that comes out to be about 80 kilograms. And if you times this by 1.6 for the lower end of the range and 2.4 for the upper end of the range, you're gonna see that I'm gonna need 128 grams to 192 grams of protein. Anywhere in this range should work for me optimally to build muscle. I recommend that you start tracking some of your food with a calorie counter. MyFitnessPal used to be a good option, but I think that it's paid now. But it will give you a good idea of how much protein you are actually consuming, because a lot of people tend to overestimate the amount of protein that they're consuming. Do this for a few weeks so you get used to the amount of protein in the servings of food that you're doing, and then you can transition back to more loose tracking where you kind of eyeball things. But if you're finding that you are undershooting your protein goals, go back to my tip from earlier of having more snacks. There's a lot of ways to sneak extra protein into snacks, whether that is with some sort of protein powder. You can get yogurt with higher protein. You can also get cheeses that have good protein in them. There's just so many ways to get extra protein into your snacks. If you're interested in learning more about what your protein goals should be, you should check out this video. It's a great conversation between Greg Doucette and Dr. Layne Norton about what is optimal in terms of consuming protein for muscle synthesis. What about y'all? What are some of your favorite foods or snacks to consume, especially when you're struggling to meet a caloric goal? Let me know in the comments down below. But that's gonna bring us to the end of the video. If you found this video to be helpful or informational at all, be sure to give it a like and subscribe. It helps the channel to grow and reach new people. If you have any thoughts or ideas, please be sure to leave a comment down below. I like to read all of them and I like to respond to as many as I can. If you're interested in more of my fitness related content, be sure to check out this video right here where I talk about ways to build consistency into your gym routine. If you're more interested in some of my most recent stuff, be sure to check out this video right here. But until the next time, this is the Mengineer signing out.